boys and girls. We're ready for part 2 of the chapter from Little House in the Big Woods called Summertime. I'm ready to read about Ma making cheese with the girls. There's parts in it that I don't really like and that seem a little bit harsh, but in those days, remember, they had to do things a lot differently than go to a store. So this will tell you how they used to do it in the old days. All right, I'm putting my reading glasses on and I'm ready to read. Ma was busy too. Laura and Mary helped her weed the garden, and they helped her feed the calves and the hens, and they gathered the eggs, and they helped make cheese. When the grass was tall and thick in the woods, and the cows were giving plenty of milk, that was the time to make cheese. Somebody must kill a calf. That's the part I don't like. For cheese could not be made without rennet, and rennet is the lining of a young calf's stomach. The calf must be very young, so that it had never eaten anything but milk. Laura was afraid that Pa must kill one of the little calves in the barn, and they were so sweet. One was fawn-colored and one was red, and their hair was so soft, and their large eyes so wondering. Laura's heart beat fast when Ma talked to Pa about making cheese. Pa would not kill either of his calves because they were heifers and would grow into cows. He went to Grandpa's and to Uncle Henry's to talk about cheese making, and Uncle Henry said he would kill one of his calves. There would be enough rennet for Aunt Polly and Grandma and Ma, so Pa went again to Uncle Henry's and came back with a piece of little calf's stomach. It was like a piece of soft grayish white leather, all ridged and rough on one side. When the cows were milked at night, Ma set the milk away in the pans. In the morning, she skimmed off the cream to make it into butter later. Then, when the morning's milk had cooled, she mixed it with the skimmed milk and set it all on the stove to heat. A bit of the rennet tied in a cloth was soaking in warm water. When the milk was heated through, Ma squeezed every drop of water from the rennet into the cloth, and she poured the water into the milk. She stirred it well and left it in a warm place by the stove. In a little while, it thickened into a smooth, quivery mass. With a long knife, Ma cut the mass into little squares and let it stand while the curd separated from the whey. Then she poured it all into a cloth and let the thin yellowish whey drain out. When no more whey dripped from the cloth, Ma emptied the curd into a big pan and salted it, turning and mixing it well. Laura and Mary were always there helping all they could. They loved to eat bits of curd. When Ma was salting it, it squeaked in their teeth. And here's a picture of Ma using special wooden boxes that they would put the cheese in, and then we'll hear what she does to press it down. And the whey runs out right down here and into this little container, and there's Laura helping her with another one. Okay, let's go on. Under the cherry tree outside the back door, Pa had put the board to press the cheese on. He had cut 2 grooves the length of the board and laid the board on blocks, one end a little higher than the other. Under the lower end stood an empty pail. Ma put her wooden cheese hoop on the board, spread a clean wet cloth all over the inside of it, and filled it heaping full of the chunks of salted curd. She covered this with another clean wet cloth and laid on top of it a round board cut small enough to go inside the cheese hoop. Then she lifted a heavy rock on top of the board. All day long, the round board settled slowly under the weight of the rock, and the whey pressed out and ran down the grooves of the board into the pail. Next morning, Ma would take out the round pale yellow cheese as large as a milk pan. Then she made more curd and filled the cheese hoop again. Every morning she took the new cheese out of the press and trimmed it smooth. She sewed a cloth tightly around it and rubbed the cloth all over with fresh butter. Then she put the cheese on a shelf in the pantry. Every day she wiped every cheese carefully with a wet cloth and then rubbed it all over with fresh butter once more and laid it down on its other side. After a great many days, the cheese was ripe and there was a hard rind all over it. Then Ma wrapped each cheese in paper and laid it away on the high shelf. There was nothing more to be done with it but to eat it. Laura and Mary liked cheese making. They liked to eat the curd that squeaked in their teeth, and they liked to eat the edges Ma pared off of the big, round, yellow cheeses to make them smooth before she sewed them up in cloth. Ma laughed at them for eating green cheese. The moon is made of green cheese, some people say, she told them. The new cheese did not look like the round moon when it came up behind the trees, but it was not green, it was yellow like the moon. It's green, Ma said, because it isn't ripened yet. When it's cured and ripened, it won't be a green cheese. Is the moon really made of green cheese? Laura asked. And Ma laughed. I think people say that because it looks like a green cheese, she said, but appearances are deceiving. Then, while she wiped all the green cheeses and rubbed them with butter, she told them about the dead cold moon that is like a little world on which nothing grows. The first day Ma made cheese, Laura tasted the whey. She tasted it without saying anything to Ma, and when Ma turned around and saw her face, Ma laughed. That night, while she was washing the supper dishes and Mary and Laura were wiping them, Ma told Pa that Laura had tasted the whey and didn't like it. Oh, you wouldn't starve to death on Ma's whey, like old Grimes did on his wife's, Pa said. Laura begged him to tell her about old Grimes, so though Pa was tired, he took out his fiddle out of the box and played and sang for Laura. Old Grimes is dead, the good old man, we ne'er shall see him more. He used to wear an old gray coat, all buttoned down before. Old Grimes's wife made skim milk cheese. Old Grimes, he drank the whey. There came an east wind from the west and blew old Grimes away. Oh, my. There you have it, said Pa. She was a mean, tight-fisted woman. If she hadn't skimmed all the milk, a little cream would have run off in the way and old Grimes might have staggered along. But she skimmed off every bit of the cream, and poor old Grimes got so thin the wind blew him away, plumb starved to death. Then Pa looked at Ma and said, Nobody'd starve to death when you were around, Caroline. Well, no, Ma said. No, Charles. Not if you're there to provide for us. Pa was pleased. It was all so pleasant, the doors and windows wide open to summer evenings, the dishes making cheerful little sounds together as Ma washed them, and Mary and Laura wiped, and Pa put away the fiddle and smiling and whistling softly to himself. After a while he said, Going over to Henry's tomorrow morning, Caroline, to borrow his grubbing hoe. Those sprouts are getting waist high in the stumps in the wheat field, around the stumps in the wheat field. A man just has to keep everlasting at it, or the woods will take back the place. Early the next morning he started to walk to Uncle Henry's, but before long he came hurrying back, hitched the horses to the wagon, threw in his axe, 2 wash tubs, the wash boiler, and all the pails and wooden buckets there were. I don't know if I'll need 'em all, Caroline, he said, but I'd hate to want 'em and not have 'em. And I'm going to read that next part on the next part of this chapter in the next recording. So, boys and girls, come back or just go right on to the next one if you want to know why Pa raced in for every wash tub and bucket and pail and jar and anything he could find. What had he found on the way to visit Uncle Henry? We're going to find out next.